A single setting, buried deep in a menu, can silently override your entire network logic. A duration that says 10 days can mean 3 different real-world completion dates. And the one critical path you're staring at right now, it's only critical under today's assumptions. The paths about to take over are the ones nobody's watching right now. These are the 3 distortions that make a schedule look calm on the surface while something serious is happening underneath. Welcome to the third part of our diagnostic deep dive. Today is a long session because these 3 topics, constraints, calendars, and paths, belong together. You cannot understand one without the other 2. In part 1, we'll expose constraint traps and the float story they distort. We'll learn the difference between a float number that's a fire alarm and one that's a lie. Part 2 covers calendars, invalid progress, and out-of-sequence work. These are the silent distortions in your time base and your status data that corrupt your forecast. And in part 3, we'll tackle critical and near-critical paths and the merge points where risk quietly concentrates. By the end, you'll see the parts of a schedule that are lying to you. Welcome to Catalyst Grid. I'm Kingsley Amufua, and this is Schedule Assurance with Deltek Acumen. Today we finish the core diagnostic pass of the pipeline. Part 2 took us through the first half of a Fuse diagnostic pass, vital signs, logic integrity, and the leads and lags where hidden work often goes missing. We're still on stage 3 of our pipeline, diagnose. Today we complete that diagnostic job with 3 final critical layers of schedule health. Let's start with the trap that catches almost every schedule I've ever reviewed, constraints. At its core, a constraint is a manual override of the schedule engine. A date constraint is an instruction typed directly onto an activity. Depending on its type, it can influence the calculation or override the network logic entirely. Know the family. We have soft constraints like start on or after, or finish on or before. These provide boundaries but allow the logic some room to move. Then we have hard and mandatory constraints, mandatory start, mandatory finish, or start on. These are the ones to watch hardest because they can stop the schedule from responding to delay. When you use a mandatory constraint, the activity simply sits at its type date, regardless of what's happening around it. It masks the true impact of delays. This creates artificial logic. It tells the project team things are fine when, in reality, the predecessors are slipping and the milestone is actually unachievable. Here's the discipline I want you to apply to every material constraint you find. Give it a birth certificate. Start with a contractual or technical justification. Every constraint needs a source document and an owner. Who made this decision? When was it imposed? If it can't produce these, it's just a frozen, outdated decision. It needs a review date and an approval status. Without this pedigree, a constraint deserves to be challenged and potentially removed to restore the logic's integrity. While you're reviewing constraints, watch for their quiet cousin, the suspiciously long activity. Long durations are a classic way to conceal schedule risk. Long durations hide incomplete scope that was never broken down. They bundle multiple responsible parties into one bar, meaning nobody is truly accountable for the whole thing. They make progress impossible to measure objectively. Is it 40% done or 60%? You can't tell. They also often hide waiting periods that should be modeled honestly as lags or milestones. What counts as too long depends on your schedule level. A level 2 master program might tolerate 60 to 90 days. A level 3 control program, only 20 to 30. An execution program should look at 10 to 20 days, and a look ahead only 5 to 10. If an activity is out of step with its level, ask what's really inside it. Now, let's talk about the float story. Float is misread constantly in both directions. High total float can be a symptom of a healthy plan or a broken one. High float often indicates missing logic. It's an activity that isn't connected to the consequences that should constrain it, making it look safer than it actually is. It can also mean weak integration between work packages or incorrect calendars quietly stretching the available time. Artificial constraints elsewhere in the network can also absorb pressure. But remember, high float isn't automatically wrong. The key review question is whether it's technically credible. You have to trace the logic to the end. If the float is real and defensible, leave it. But if it can't be explained by the physical sequence of work, you've likely found a missing relationship. That's where you go looking. Now we come to the number that should make every project manager sit up straight. Negative float. This is the schedule screaming for attention. Negative float means your calculated completion is later than your imposed requirement. Whether that's a contract date, an interim milestone, or an external interface. It can come from delayed progress, late procurement, or even a sudden calendar change. But the worst cause? An imposed constraint that the logic can no longer meet. Here's the critical discipline. Negative float should never simply be removed, deleted, or constrained away just to make the report look clean. That's hiding the problem, not solving it. For every material negative float finding, you must build a record. Document the milestone, the required date, the forecast date, and the variance. Identify the driving path causing it. Then, record the recovery action and the residual risk that remains. Negative float is the schedule's clearest language. Treat it as information to act on, not a formatting error. Every float number we've just discussed rests on one assumption, that durations mean what we think they mean. That depends entirely on your calendars. Let's move to part 2. Here's a fact that surprises people. The same 20-day duration can represent 3 completely different stretches of real elapsed time depending on the calendar. On a 5-day week, 20 working days is 4 calendar weeks. On a 7-day week, it's under 3. Same number, different reality. This is why the calendar review is vital. You must count the calendars in use. Check the working weeks, the public holidays, the shutdowns, and the shift patterns. Do you have 24-hour calendars where they don't belong? Check procurement calendars versus site calendars. Watch for imported junk. Calendars from other files that are no longer used but clutter your analysis and invite mistakes. Watch for relationships that cross between different calendars. The elapsed time on either side of that link can behave in ways that aren't obvious at a glance. Review before you trust. Now let's look at actual progress. The data that should be the most trustworthy part of any schedule, but often isn't. We need to sweep for status errors. Check for actual dates recorded after the data date. That shouldn't be possible. Also, look for remaining work sitting before the data date, work the system thinks is already done. Look for activities marked completed without an actual finish date or in progress without an actual start. These orphaned statuses break the calculation engine. Watch for 0 remaining duration on an activity that is still shown as incomplete, or actual finish dates that land earlier than the actual start date, which is simply impossible. Every one of these errors corrupts the forecast. The engine assumes the data date is a clean, honest line between the past and the future. If that line is messy, your dates are wrong. Out-of-sequence work is when a successor starts before its predecessor permits it. It happens for real reasons. Field resequencing, inaccurate logic, or missing partial handovers. The playbook should require you to investigate the out-of-sequence case, not simply flip the scheduling option and let the tool absorb it silently. An investigation answers the question. Calendars in progress protect the honesty of individual dates, but schedules aren't read one activity at a time, they're read as paths. Let's head into part 3. Near-critical paths sit just behind the main one. They are close enough that a small shift, a missed delivery, or a bad weather day will promote them to being the driving path. Start with the fundamentals. The longest path through your network is what drives your finish date. But most tools use total float criticality to flag activities, usually anything near 0 float. Here's the danger. Any one of those 5 incoming paths can delay the receiving activity. It's only as reliable as its least reliable feeder. Yet simple float checks won't show you this. If that single predecessor slips, the impact isn't contained, it fans out. Both merge and diverge points deserve more scrutiny than ordinary activities because so much is riding on them. Typical hotspots: design release, building weather tight, permanent power, switchgear energization, IST start, authority approvals. These are points where multiple disciplines or contractors must align at once. Let's bring it together. Classify every constraint. Watch long durations. Read float as a story. Review calendars and sweep for invalid progress every cycle. Investigate out-of-sequence work. Track near-critical paths and hunt the merge and diverge hotspots. That's where delay exposure concentrates far beyond what an ordinary float check will show you. This week's challenge: count your mandatory constraints and check their birth certificates. Or find one unused calendar. Or name your project's worst merge hotspot. Comment which one you tried. And subscribe, because next episode we finally put a real number on schedule quality, the Fuse Schedule Index. I'm Kingsley Amafua. This is Catalyst Grid. Assure the schedule. Kingsley Amafua, your host, signing off. Let's go even deeper on constraint classification. A soft constraint like start no earlier than acts as a floor. It keeps the activity from drifting too early but lets it slide late. Mandatory constraints, however, are an anchor. They don't just set a floor, they lock the activity in place. This kills logic flexibility and hides the true ripple effect of delays. Watch out for the as late as possible, or ALAP constraint. It consumes all available float, pushing the activity to the very last second. It leaves you with zero buffer for any execution risk. ALAP creates hidden criticality. Activities that should have slack suddenly look critical, cluttering your focus and making it harder to spot genuine driving paths. Use them very sparingly. When reviewing calendars, don't just check the working week. Check the regional holidays. A project in the UK has different bank holidays than one in the US or UAE. Local site rules matter. A single missed bank holiday can shift an entire sequence by 3 days because of the weekend jump. It seems small, but over a complex project, these omissions compound into major errors. Check your shift patterns. Are you assuming 24/7 work on activities that actually require daylight or specific safety crews who only work 10 hours a day? Your time base must match reality. If your calendar assumes work is happening while the site is closed for safety checks or shift handovers, your durations are lies. Align your time base to the site's permit rules. Another status error to hunt: out-of-range dates. This is when an actual start is recorded before the project officially began, or after it's supposed to end. It's data entry noise. Scrub your data. These noise dates mess up your historic performance metrics like SPI or CPI and corrupt your future trend lines. A clean schedule needs a clean history to forecast from. Understand the difference between longest path and total float criticality. On a complex project with multiple calendars and constraints, they aren't always the same thing. A constraint can make a side path look critical, while the actual longest physical sequence of work is hidden elsewhere. Always verify which one is driving your end date. Trust the physics. To mitigate diverge point risk, try to decouple downstream activities. Can some of those successors start earlier using partial data? Reducing the fan-out reduces the slip exposure. By staggering the start of successors or creating intermediate handovers, you smooth the risk. Don't let one slip take down 10 work fronts at once. Design your logic for resilience. We've covered a massive amount of ground today. This is the heart of schedule assurance. Master these 3 distortions, and you'll be ahead of 90% of the projects out there. I'm Kingsley Amufua. Thank you for your commitment to excellence. See you in part 4. Assure the schedule. Kingsley Amufua, signing off for real this time. 2. Run a full calendar review and find one calendar that hasn't been used in months. Or 3. Name your project's worst merge hotspot, the one place where too many paths collide. 2. Run a full calendar review and find one calendar that hasn't been used in months. Or 3. Name your project's worst merge hotspot, the one place where too many paths collide. Back to part 2. Calendars. A common mistake is using a standard 5-day calendar for work that's happening on an accelerated 7-day site schedule. This calendar drift hides true capacity. The wrong calendar can make you miss risks that only happen on weekends or during specific shift handovers. Always align your calendar to the reality of the work front. When sweeping for progress errors, be forensic. Future actual dates are often a sign of auto-updating without checking the field. It's a sign of a scheduler who's lost touch with the site. If you see future dates, your data is corrupted. You must reset to the true data date. This is the only way to restore the honesty of your completion forecast. Ensure your team knows this. Let's revisit out-of-sequence logic. Retained logic is the safer default. It respects the original plan. But progress override assumes the field has found a new, better way. Use both with caution. The goal is the truth. If out-of-sequence work is happening, your original logic was likely wrong. Update the logic links to match reality instead of relying on a software setting. In part 3, near critical paths are where your contingency lives or dies. If you have 10 paths all within 2 days of the critical path, you don't have one driving path. You have a risk explosion. This is path density. High density means any small error anywhere will delay the project. You must track these near misses as carefully as the zero float path itself. Tracing merge hotspots requires looking at the predecessor count. If one milestone has 20 predecessors, the probability of finishing that milestone on time is statistically tiny. Every predecessor is a point of failure. This is why we focus on merge point bias in risk modeling. It's the silent killer of project completion dates. Watch your convergences. Take IFC release, designed for construction. It's a classic merge point. It needs engineering, client approval, and regulatory sign-off. If one of those is late, the site stops. It's high risk, or permanent power. It depends on the utility company, site cabling, switchgear delivery, and safety inspections. It's another alignment point that can derail your commissioning sequence. How do you mitigate these? Early engagement with the parties involved, dedicated buffers at the merge point, and identifying parallel work that can happen even if the hotspot slips. Protect your merge points. They are the most fragile parts of your network. If you don't manage them specifically, they will manage your project, usually by delaying it. Everything we've covered today, the constraints, the calendars, the paths, builds on the logic integrity we established in part 2. It's all about one goal: schedule assurance. Remember, a schedule isn't just a report. It's a tool for decision-making. By removing these distortions, you're giving your leadership team the clear truth they need to lead. Thank you for sticking with this deep dive. It's a lot of data, but it's the foundation of project success. I'm Kingsley Amufua. I'll see you in the next one. Assure the schedule. And as a bonus challenge, pick one of the hotspots we listed, like IFC or power, and trace its predecessors in your own schedule. You might be surprised at what you find. Join the community, share your results, and let's raise the bar for schedule quality together. Subscribe for more knowledge. Signing off one last time. Take care. Catalyst Grid, where technical expertise meets strategic recovery. Impacted knowledge for your next project. See you soon. Calendars and progress protect the honesty of individual dates, but schedules aren't read one activity at a time. They're read as paths. Let's head into part 3. But remember, high float isn't automatically wrong. The key review question is whether it's technically credible. You have to trace the logic to the end. If the float is real and defensible, leave it. But if it can't be explained by the physical sequence of work, you've likely found a missing relationship. That's where you go looking. Now we come to the number that should make every project manager sit up straight. Negative float. This is the schedule screaming for attention. It can come from delayed progress, late procurement, or even a sudden calendar change. But the worst cause, an imposed constraint that the logic can no longer meet. It can come from delayed progress, late procurement, or even a sudden calendar change. But the worst cause, an imposed constraint that the logic can no longer meet. Here's the critical discipline. Negative float should never simply be removed, deleted, or constrained away just to make the report look clean. That's hiding the problem, not solving it. For every material negative float finding, you must build a record. Document the milestone, the required date, the forecast date, and the variance. Identify the driving path causing it. Then, record the recovery action and the residual risk that remains. Negative float is the schedule's clearest language. Treat it as information to act on, not a formatting error. Every float number we've just discussed rests on one assumption: that durations mean what we think they mean. That depends entirely on your calendars. Let's move to part 2. Here's a fact that surprises people. The same 20-day duration can represent 3 completely different stretches of real elapsed time depending on the calendar. On a 5-day week, 20 working days is 4 calendar weeks. On a 7-day week, it's under 3. Same number, different reality. This is why the calendar review is vital. You must count the calendars in use. Check the working weeks, the public holidays, the shutdowns, and the shift patterns. Do you have 24-hour calendars where they don't belong? Check procurement calendars versus site calendars. Watch for imported junk, calendars from other files that are no longer used but clutter your analysis and invite mistakes. Watch for relationships that cross between different calendars. The elapsed time on either